Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome you to this live webcast from the Rock Canyon and Kira Sound Studios located in Provo, Utah. Jason Scheff has been the bassist and singer for the legendary rock band Chicago since 1985. Besides performing the band's classic material, Jason has composed several original songs for the band, including their 1989 top 10 single, What Kind of Man Would I Be? He is the oldest son of well-known session bassist Jerry Scheff, who toured for several years with Elvis Presley. Jason co-wrote 7 of the 12 songs on Chicago's album Chicago 30, their first collection of new material since 1991's 21. He also produced and co-wrote the title track, as well as Crazy Happy, Love Lives On, and Nice Girl for Chicago's latest album, Chicago 36 Now, which was released on 4th of July, 2014. Jason's other credits include a solo album entitled and appearing on the Pink Floyd tribute album Back Against the Wall, as well as collaborations with indie supergroup LEO and Boz Scaggs. Jason recently completed his first training product called 80s Radio Ready Vocals, which can be found on his website, jasonscheff.com or 80sradiovocals.com. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jason Scheff.
Wow, what an introduction. It's funny when you hear something played back or read back to you. A lot of times I'll be doing some press with the band and they'll go into these montages of all the hits, and it's just insane to hear your life flash before your ears. So thank you all for being here, and thank you anybody who's tuning into the webcast. I've always loved these kind of things. I was an early adopter back when Ustream was really first happening in the late 90s, really. And I just love this kind of thing. As he mentioned, I put together my first educational product basically out of a few different necessities and needs. One of them is that I just assume everybody knows this stuff. You know, you just, didn't you know that we did it like this? And they go, no, that's incredible. Show me what you're doing. As well as I hear a lot of the music that's being made today, cutting corners, taking the easy way out. Back when we came up, actually, I consider myself born in an incredible generation to where I started making records with Chicago in the mid-'80s. And so the technology wasn't out yet to be able to cut corners. You really had to work your way in. You had to earn your way in, master something. And I think that we're at the beginning of an incredible renaissance. I really do. And people like Adele, Sam Smith that come through, the reason these people just go into the stratosphere like that is because you can tell that they're not cutting corners. They're really phenomenal artists, and my story is pretty interesting to me, at least, and it might be to you. I never saw myself as a real singer. You know, my mother used to hammer me and say, "You gotta sing, Jason." But I just wanted to play bass. You know, as you guys heard, my father is one of the greatest that ever lived. And my parents split up when I was very young, so I didn't really spend much time with him. So all I knew was this guy was out playing with Elvis Presley and on all these hit records, and that's what I wanted to do. I picked the bass up, and it was really natural for me. And so my dream was to go to LA someday and become a first call session bass player. And you know, I was really good as a bass player, but I went to LA and it didn't happen for me. I think I wanted it too bad. I think I just kind of squeezed the notes. I squeezed it out of my hands. You know, it's like they say when you're squeezing too hard, it just slips through your fingers. But my mother was like hammering me. You gotta sing. And I'm going, I want to be tough. I want to be cool. I want to be a rocker, you know. But I played bass, so. And then this one moment, this pivotal moment in my life came where she gave me a birthday gift. I was 21 years old. She said, I got you a vocal lesson. I went, great. Oh, great. She not only got me a vocal lesson, but she got me a vocal lesson with the greatest teacher on the planet, a guy named Seth Riggs, who at the time was teaching Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, the guys in Earth, Wind and Fire, Maurice White and Philip Bailey, all my heroes. And so I'm going, okay, it's one of those things where it's a great life lesson too. You put some skin in the game, and you have to follow through. You can't bail. I would have loved to have not gone to that lesson. But I thought I'd be walking in, and this would be the one and only lesson. Oh, let me get it over with. The guy'd see that I'm not really for real, and he'd go, well, okay, thanks for the $50. $50 back in 1983 for a half hour. That was a fortune. It was like $50. So again, like I said, I couldn't back out. So I go in, and this guy changed my life because he saw something in me. He saw that I was chasing up the wrong tree. I'm not a baritone. I wanted to sound like Jeffrey Osborne and all the manly singers at the time, if I was going to do this singing thing. But he just saw that I was a tenor. And he said, man, he goes, the tenor is a gold mine. Listen to the radio. It's Journey, Chicago, all these great groups. And so I'm, as a working musician, I just wanted a gig, right? That's the goal is to work, get a gig. So I'm going, okay, but he showed me in that one lesson potential. Took me up into my head voice, which some of you may know what that is, and comfortably got me up into notes that I didn't realize I was capable of, but it was comfortable. And I left that lesson thinking not only when am I coming back, but how many times a week. And so I took it on myself, and I started paying for it myself and went twice a week at times, $100 a week for a kid that was, just trying to scrape a couple nickels together at the time. But it was unbelievable because I think I was with him at least a year, and that prepared me. I thought later, when I think of from the first vocal lesson to when I got the call and the opportunity to go audition for Chicago, that would have seemed to me like 5 or 6 years of a gap. Because, like I said, walking into a vocal coach and thinking, well, I'm not really for real, to all of a sudden getting an opportunity, but being prepared. Well, like I said, I was 21. It was my 21st birthday. I walked in and took that first lesson, and I was 23. Probably about 23 and a half, about 2.5 years later, when Chicago came a knocking. It was just that short period of time, but having a phenomenal coach and getting prepared for this. So what my little product here is about is basically people have asked me over the years, how did you get the sound? How did you get that sound for the hits that you sang? Like, Will You Still Love Me? That was the first one on Chicago 18. And again, I walked in the microphone, and there's David Foster and Humberto Gatica on the other side of the glass. And these guys are basically at the top of the food chain. You turn the radio on in the mid-'80s, and it's David Foster, whether it's Chicago or St. Elmo's Fire, Man in Motion. He was just dominating the radio. In fact, real quick story, when I walked into the studio on the first day of recording Chicago 18, David was noodling around on his piano. I'm getting chills even telling you this because it's so insane when this happens. He's noodling around on his piano, and it was that thing where you heard the radio. He wasn't playing any song. It was just David Foster goofing around. I'm just going, wow, that feel. And then all of a sudden, the guy walks in the room and goes, well, shall we get started? I guess so, So what I put together here is basically how I did it, how I went into the studio and put headphones on and was able to come up with those vocals. And so much of it had to do with preparation, I walked in, and David said, you ready to take one? And truthfully, he didn't know. I mean, come on, he was working with Peter Cetera. So here's some kid that's totally unproven. Our demos were not, that I turned in, I was certainly not, firing on all 12 cylinders. I was intimidated. The demos. But when we got into that moment of truth in the studio, and there's David Foster on the other side of the glass, I put the headphones on, and it sounded amazing. It pretty much sounded like the record was done, and that's another lost art in recording. A lot of kids come out of recording schools, and they're just kind of getting things sounding okay. But when that singer walks up to the microphone and puts headphones on, if you're putting a phenomenal environment around that person, they're going to deliver. If they can't sing, they're not going to be able to. But again, my point is, I didn't know. I was like, I know I can sing, but am I really on that level? But when these guys put the environment together to get it out of you, and that's the first stage of what this is about. Because luckily, this Apollo Twin that I'm using right here is a universal audio product. And it's crazy because what they've done is they've basically modeled all of the gear that we used back then. Like basically we're recording the Studer tape machines. You have a plug-in that basically emulates the sound of the machine. An SSL 4000 console for a mic pre. An LA2A compressor. And so when I started dialing the sounds in on this, it made me feel like I was right back there in Chartmaker Studios in 1986. So boom, the sound was back, inspired. Then what I put together is another huge element in preparation is to put a template together. So many times I'll go in to do a recording session, and you'll just be, the vibe is really great. All of a sudden you'll sing just your heart out, and you get a great pass, and you go, awesome, let me double it. And then the engineer will say, okay, hold on a second, let me get a track ready for you. You're done. That stutter step, even if it's like 10 seconds, 15 seconds. So Gaynor knows, because I brought a project in here of Casey and the Sunshine Band. We did You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin', and I brought it in here, and I said, Gaynor, let's do this, and I'm going to show you how I do this. So we set it all up, the whole template of everything, so that by the time we were ready to press record, we blasted through it, right? Yeah, it's like when you get these things set up, it's like David Foster, Phil Ramone, Keith Olsen, the three producers that I've worked with and had the greatest experiences with, they all know it. It's old school. They're ready so that by the time you press record, it's on, because it's efficient too. You hear people, spending so much time and wasting so much time. If you have this thing set up properly, you can just fly through it. So the first thing I'll show you is basically this is, let's just go to the lead vocal, okay? Here is the secret of songs like Will You Still Love Me, What Kind of Man Would I Be, is that, and I never thought that anybody would be doing this, but I loved it because it's a sound. It's basically an otherworldly sound. It's fantasy land. What it is I'm just going to do this all over from scratch, okay? Say that I got a track up and running, and I'll play it for you for a second, all right? Here's a song off of my solo album, Chauncey, that I wrote for my lovely wife. It's called San Felipe, and here's the track of it. We go on a while, I say... Sorry, let me do that over again without the vocal. Okay, so say I've walked in and I've heard this track and I'm going, okay, I'm digging that. That's really cool. That's really cool. And we've heard it down. Maybe spent some time with it before we go in the studio. So I'm really hearing a pulse of, you know, this inner clock that's working, right? And I've prepared this. I've made my own little template with 3 tracks. A lead vocal, which is going straight up the center in the stereo field. Lead vocal 2, which is a double, and I pan that. To you, it'll be this, 9 o'clock. So the first vocal is going straight up the center. Second one is going 9 o'clock. Third one is, can you guess what the third one's called? Lead vocal 3? Awesome. Triple, both correct answers. Lead vocal 3 and triple. And where would that be? Okay, wait a minute. This is going to be fun. If the first one's panned at 9 o'clock and I'm going to even it out, where's the second one panned? I love it. Give that man a prize. We'll figure out what these prize. We got to get our prize situation together. So that is the secret. That's the secret. So if I were to tell you that and theoretically go, okay, that's kind of cool, but this is a lead vocal thing, right? So I'm going to cut the first vocal, and I'm really nervous because all of you are right here, but I'm really not because I'm kind of a weird guy and like to be in front of people and throw myself to the wolves. But here we'll go, okay? I'm going to cut the first one, and it should be coming straight up the middle, okay? 1. We go on a while. I say everything's all right. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you. I should probably record this while we're doing that. It's pretty stupid. Okay? It's okay. Here we go. Let's record it. We go on a while. I say everything's all right. That's not recording either. Hold on one quick second. Let me find out what my problem is. Maybe. 1, 2, check. 1, 2, check. Probably I don't have the right interface. I'm very sorry. I'll take care of this in a second. Oh. Lead vocal. Lead vocal. And you are... Oh, input 1, right, not 2, not 2, 1. There it is, there's our level. Beautiful. Here we go. Actually, that worked to my favor because that wasn't great, the first 2 passes. That was my way of warming up without... We go on a while. I say everything's all right. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you, a shadow of a doubt. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never be afraid. Okay?
You got reverb on that?
What's that, buddy?
No reverb.
Exactly. I'm flying dry, baby. But you know what? He's right. I'd like to have this sound. You know what? No. Let's, as our experiment here. Now, Gaynor pointed out that we don't have any reverb on this, which is not the most pleasing sound in the world. That's true. I think this is going to illustrate the point even better. So, right, here's where I see so many people going sideways in modern recording. Uh-oh, there's mistakes in there. You know, if anybody's you guys probably heard some spots that may not have been the best it could be. Now you can go in there and start nitpicking and say, okay, let's fix this spot. Here's what I learned back in the day, you guys. This is what I call painting, okay? This is what some of the great producers and engineers taught me too. Don't worry about it. We can come back and fix it, but watch what happens when you start painting this thing up. So what you're gonna hear now is that lead vocal, and this next one is going to be panned 9 o'clock. So that is to your left, all right? So you should be hearing that first vocal and then a double, which most people, before I joined Chicago, that's as far as you'd get. Let's double the vocal, which is also a nice sound, but wait till you hear what a triple sounds like, okay? Here we go, here's a double. We go on a while. No, I should probably arm track 2 rather than go over what we just recorded. We go on a while. I say everything's alright. I'm sorry, you guys, I made the same mistake. I need to make track 2 input 1. And you know what? So that I won't put you through that again, we're going to go right down to track 3 and make that input 1 too. So as I'm sitting here bragging about how fast we can get through this, my inputs weren't right. Okay, we're still going to see how fast we can do this, all right? So, no problem, no problem. That's my rap voice. No problem, no problem. Okay, here we go. Here we go, here we go, here we go. We go on a while. I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow of a doubt. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never be afraid. Okay, there's the double, and check this out. I love it because I can hear some flamming in there. Again, it's like here's 2 tracks, and there's mistakes. Watch what happens with a triple. It's insane. The first time, like I said, first song we did on Chicago 18, and I heard this happening, everything changed. Everything changed because I saw the power of what the sound was becoming. And then you're actually able to smooth things out. You know, literally like when I'm gonna, let me make sure that my level is right on this first. We go on a while. I say everything's alright. Okay, so I needed to bring my overall level up, but now I'm gonna be listening real closely to those other 2 vocals and kind of almost like not being late on them, but certainly not anticipating them, just kind of reacting to those vocals. And it just sort of glues them all together. So now you've heard 2 vocals, one straight up the center, and the other one coming up on your left. Watch what happens when this third one happens. We go on a while. I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow of a doubt. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never be afraid. Okay, You hear what happened there? I'm so glad to hear a reaction like that, because you see what happened there? It just, the triple changes everything. You know, not to get too technical, but all of a sudden, there's all these frequencies and harmonics that just start multiplying, like building up, especially the high end. And so one thing I noticed was that when you started layering these things, this glassiness, this sound that was like, you know, and there's no EQ added, equalization, meaning like adding some top end, but it's literally loading those harmonics and frequencies. Here, I'll just, and let's break this down. I want to see if anybody has any questions too. After I'm going to mute the work track, and since we've got speakers going, you'll probably hear a little bit of it in the background. But let's just hear what this sounds like and start picking it apart. We go on a while. I say everything's all right. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you, a shadow of a doubt. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never be afraid. Now, listening back to that, to me, I remember on the double that I hit like a couple of notes that were flamming against that first. Like I heard like a t-t, you know, and I didn't quite double that lead, the original vocal with the second one. And hearing back the third one, it smoothed itself out. You guys hear that also? That it just kind of like smoothed everything out. Where the point is that with these great producers, once you started painting this stuff up like this, you'll be amazed at what is really keepable and good that so many people just immediately, no, it's a mistake, let's go over it again. And I see world-class artists do this all the time. And it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long to just, you know, blast through a part, try it, right? And then if it's not right, go back to the drawing board or fix something that's wrong. A lot of times, just to get a vibe going, I'll go through a first pass, you know, first lead vocal, number one up the center, and just not even care whether it's, in fact, let's do that again. I'm just gonna kind of get lazy about it and you know, maybe kind of goof with the phrasing a little bit and then see what happens, you know, as we paint to it. Why not, right? Oops. Work track. Now I got all my input straight, so now I can maybe impress you with how fast I can go. Okay. So here we go. We go on a while. I say everything's all right. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you, a shadow of a doubt. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never be afraid. So I sang that last part of that very softly. I noticed that. Another thing I'll do is this. Now the lead vocal is going straight up the center. These next two that are really just sort of broadening out the sound, I'm going to sing these intentionally breathy. Watch what happens with this technique. This is another thing that's kind of cool. We go on a while. I say everything's all right. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. wonder that I left you a shadow of a doubt. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never be afraid. Okay, so again, there's plenty to pick apart and critique about that. There's all kinds of things that are a little all over the place of that. Again, I learned the trick, man. Back in the day, I learned the secret. It's a triple. It's a triple. I see people freaking out going, oh, it's off, it's bad. It's like, give me another track, man. Give me one more. And let's see what happens, right? We go on a while, I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never be afraid. Right? So, let's listen to that. We go on a while, I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. I'm bringing the breathy ones up a little bit. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow of a doubt. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never. Okay, so something that most people normally wouldn't do, let's get a little crazy. Now let's add a few more, right? Just like, again, like watch what happens when you start painting this up and it starts smoothing out the impurities. It's almost like a water filter, right? So, okay, so let's go into this guy right here, and why not? I'm just going to go through 4 more. Left, right, okay? Well, let's just see what happens. Like that throat clearing? It's pretty nice, huh? You can make like a sample out of that little rap track. We go on a while, I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow of a doubt. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never. Yeah, I sang that one a little harder. I just felt like doing it at the time. And I'm telling you guys, it is so, again, it's so fun to hear this stuff sounding good in your headphones. It's just inspiring. We go on a while, I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow of a doubt. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never Hear that? Hear how big that's getting? This is so much fun, you guys. You probably can't tell. We go on a while. I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you, a shadow of a doubt. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never be afraid. One more. Famous last words, right? Let me just take 50 more of these tracks. Yeah. We go on a while. I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you, a shadow of a doubt. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never be afraid. So that's how you smooth out your mistakes, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, those mistakes, they don't sound too bad. So in a nutshell, you guys, that's literally the thing that happened to me that made me go, this is so much fun. And this is like a fantasy land, man. This is a playground. Because then when I got this and we blasted through, I remember people telling me, David Foster, man, he's tough. Boy, he's going to, wait till you get in the studio with David Foster. And we cut the first tune. Luckily, I co-wrote the first song that I sang in the studio with David on 18 called Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now, so I knew the song, luckily. And did this, and it was like, we cut a triple vocal, and that thing happened, and this sound happened, and it was on. And we blasted through that record. We had no problems whatsoever, just blasted right through. And again, that gave me the confidence that we were doing something world-class. And I went from, I talk about this a lot and I blog about it because I love sharing with people. Let me play you some demos from the beginning of 1985, right? And then let me play you some demos even, not even the record, but demos of late 1985 going into 1986 once I got this opportunity. Everything changed. Whole mindset changed. And that was by having an experience. So again, like I said, what I put together in my little program, 80s Radio Ready Vocals, is a study course of basically what I did. Just that and the whole thing from mic selection all the way down to, I showed the processors to get the great sound, how to get a great headphone mix, into putting together the templates. Show exactly how I put a template together so I can just, blast through vocals. Into how to comp, once I've a great technique. Hold on a second. Excuse me. A great technique is what all the greats did, and that was put together. You go out there and they say, "Give me 4 passes, top to bottom." Like you could even look at what we just did here. We did, 4. We did 7. Thank you, buddy. We did 7 tracks. So imagine, well, actually those last 4, I started feeling a bit more comfortable. You could technically take those as my 4 vocal passes, top to bottom. They say, go out and sing the song, top to bottom. Here's another mistake I see a lot of people making. They stop. Oh, I made a mistake. Sing or play to to the end. Who cares about the mistakes? Those will actually free you up. If anybody plays golf, they know that, you shake it, you get the first hole, the bad hole out of the way, so you can actually relax and get, down to business rather than being so tense the whole time. Well, same thing for singing is that, or playing anything. I'm big on this because I learned from the masters that get out there and do a performance. Don't worry about making mistakes, because go and do one top to bottom from the beginning of the song to the end. Go to your second pass, top to bottom, and by the time you're done with the fourth one, chances are you've got most of your track. Then you'll comp it together. So I showed in my course exactly how the pros comped, and I basically go through it, demonstrate it, all the way into going into one of my favorite things, which is the background vocal extravaganza. I mean, we just kind of extravaganza'd with a lead vocal here, but man, it's really fun when you start. See what you're doing to me? You're pushing me. I know what you're doing. You're pushing me to kind of go to the next level here. But okay. All right. I'm going to mute these, and let's do this. I don't even know what they are, but I should, because I'm a professional and I wrote this song and it's been around a long time, so I should be able to guess. But I'm going to sing some harmonies, so we're going to kind of treat that as a background vocal, right? And you know what? I'm going to actually let the mistakes fly too. I'm going to take you guys through the whole thing of stream of consciousness, not letting yourself get in the way of yourself. And again, this first pass that I'm going to take, which is a harmony of some sort, we'll figure it out on the fly. I may come back to it and spot fix something. You'll see. I'm going to show you exactly along the way of what we're going to do here. You pesky input. I should just change all you to input 1 because you're going to get in the way. We go on a while. I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you, a shadow of a doubt. I promised I'd leave the mistakes in. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never. Okay, let's paint to that. Good mistake. Yeah. Well, that one wasn't. But look at that. See, that's what helps. You guys are the producers. You're the ones that help save me from myself, right? Because if you're sitting there in your own little cubbyhole, cubicle, hotel room, writing room, and you go, you need to go back and fix that. But somebody clapped. How are you going to tell them they're wrong, right? So here we go. And now, since I've talked, I don't 100% remember what I did, but again, I'm going to listen real closely, and I'm going to do my best to just kind of paint to that. And there might not be the same notes, but let's see what happens. We go on a while. I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you, a shadow of a doubt. Promise I'd leave the mistakes in. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never. Now, of course, we'd go in and take the talking out, but we'll do that later. I'll show you how we do that. Okay. We go on a while. I say everything's alright. though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow down. Promise I didn't make mistakes. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never. Yeah. Getting fun, you guys. Getting fun. Oh, we're not done yet. It's getting fun, though. I love this. I love this. Now, okay, I'm going to point one thing out to check it out. There's, like, at the end of the first half of this section, I'm kind of going up on a note, and the first two were not quite in sync, but gluing them together, it creates that weird kind of sound like you got an effect. You know, like you've put a plug in. Hey, this plug-in makes you sound like you're kind of swooping like a real guy, you know, kind of making music. I liked, hey, I guess I'm, you know, right in the middle of the generations of, I was like 1 foot in old school, 1 foot in new school. Yeah, I like to go back to old school. Actually, I want to tell you one more thing, too, is that treating background vocals. What's going to happen here is that I'm going to be listening to the lead vocal, and I'm going to be choosing these notes. And I didn't do it on the first one, but I'm starting to hear what I did, and I'm going to be using some volume stuff that I'm hearing in between the notes. I'm going to hear some volume. I'm going to be doing some volume stuff, and it starts making the whole thing really have its own character. And a lot of times I'll work for people, and everybody's so precise, especially in Nashville, so precise. And then when I start doing this, I remember my buddy Rob Arthur, who plays keyboards for Peter Frampton. I did a track with him. And he heard me doing this, and he goes, "That's so killer how you're not singing the same." And I said, "Yeah, man." He goes, "It turns into its own thing." So we go on a while, I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow. And those are techniques. Those are techniques that we developed. Now I'll just go a few more tracks. I put 4 of those. Let me put a little low part somewhere. Let's see what happens with that. I have no idea what it's going to be. Mistakes are welcome, right? They're embraced. They're welcome. We go on a while, I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow. Sorry for all the build. I'm hearing all that low end build up. I hope it's not killing you out there, but see what happens. I heard some really bad funky notes in there, but who cares? Let's try and paint to it. We go on a while, I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow die. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never. I heard the bad notes. Okay, and I'm going to do 2 more of these, and I know the bad notes on that first track, and I'm going to spot fix them. But man, Gaynor, it sounds like it's really loud in here, like it's kind of building up, like so much low end that they're probably not even able to. Is there any way to maybe tame that down just a tiny bit? The damage might already be done, but let me just blast through this real quick. We go on a while, I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow. My mind, so you would never. Last one. We go on a while, I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow die. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never. Okay, so now I've actually found these parts. Here's what I'm going to do. Real quick. Now I get to show you the whole, we're going to do it fast. I'm going to blast through these, okay? Blast through them. Without that work track. We go on a while, I say everything's alright. Okay, so there's just a little bit of it, but let's see if that becomes a problem. It's gonna just to the harmonies, okay? We go on a while, I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow of a doubt. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never. Okay? We go on a while, I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow of doubt. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never be afraid. We go on a while, I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow of a doubt. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never afraid. Couple more. We go on a while, I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow of a doubt. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never afraid. Yeah. Let's go for some. We go on a while, I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow of a doubt. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never. Go some low notes. Go for some low notes. We go on a while, I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow of a doubt. How I wish that you could read my mind, so you would never. See how I did that first low note to match the last note, kind of swelling that in with volume. We go on a while, I say. Actually, I'll tell you a little secret. Now I'm going to breath these up. These low notes, I'm going to breath them up so they're not really dominating, but you'll hear this this kind of frequency down on the bottom. Where are you? We go on a while, I say everything's alright. I know I've been away, even though I've been here all the time. It's no wonder that I left you a shadow. How I wish that you so you would never. And that, you guys, is what I do, you know? And it's just the most fun thing in the world. You know, I've been reading a lot, and there's a great book out called, it's called Essentialism, and maybe some of you have read it, and it's incredible. If you think about it, it's basically, breaking it down, it's the essentials. You know, we've all gotten to a place where there's so much information and so much ability to do things, and this whole idea of we need to do everything, we need to take on everything. It's not true. You know, in this book, there's a great illustration. It looked kind of like a sun. There's a circle with all these little arrows going around it. And that's basically taking on all these things, and like, there's the energy you're putting into it. Whereas if we find the one or two things that we're really supposed to be doing, the thing that's so fun, right? You hear people talk about this all the time, find your passion and everything, but when it's really that fun, and just go big on it. That's why I've really made the decision this year, kind of ramping up last year, heading toward it, that I've really just said no to everything that doesn't have to do with being in that lane and that zone, because it's so fun. It's so fun. So does anybody have any questions? I've been sitting here just loud-mouthing the whole time. So you, young lady, what do you got? Mm-hmm. Hmm. That's a great question, because it's so tough to duplicate.
Can you repeat
what
the
it-
question?
Oh, yes. Okay. So the question was, how do you take what you do in the studio, which is, and I'll embellish, because I think I know what she was talking about, of how do you take what you do in the studio, which is really a lot more of a controlled environment, and take it out on the road, on stage, where you're at the mercy of fighting over loud competing sources, other voices, other instruments. So it's tough. It's tough to recreate it. I think what happened with in-ear monitors, I have a love-hate relationship with them, because you really can't 100% feel like if we had a band up on stage here and we were all playing and listening to each other, there's no way that you can do that with in-ear monitors. But the good side of it is that it's almost kind of like a studio environment. So I was doing an interview earlier before this and telling the gentleman that I was one of the early adopters of in-ear monitors back in, I think it might have even been the late 80s. And because I couldn't hear on stage, I was screaming and trying to get up over the sound, and that's not what this kind of stuff is, right? So I would say, really, if you have a type of music that has nuance like this, to get into a controlled environment, probably in-ear monitors, and get a great headphone mix. Again, that's really what I taught in this first of many courses I'm going to put together. But I taught how to get great headphone mixes. So that's what I would say to do. Luckily, Chicago she asks, when you're painting, do you have live, right? Do you have a background track? We have so many singers in our band. It's awesome. So yeah, it's basically painting with a bunch of great singers and vocals. But yeah, because you need that sound. Like we're going to be out touring with Earth, Wind, and Fire this summer, right? Our third time, I think, or our fourth time. It's my favorite combination too. It's one of my favorite bands. And they're a big vocal band, and they paint. That's who I came up, listening to. And when you're on the road, yeah, everybody in that band sings. So I would encourage people to jump in and start singing. Does that answer your question? Great, thanks. Yeah.
Probably just a simple function, but you know how you were layering the swoops?
Mm-hmm.
One of your words, I think it was all right.
Mm-hmm.
You end it at different times in your different tracks.
Yeah.
How do you fix that?
Great question. He said on some of the swoops that I did, like one of the words was all right. I'm gonna. We go on a while. I say everything's all right. Oh yeah, and then the background. Right. I was doing exactly that's what you're talking about. In the swoops, when they have different endings, he said, "How do you deal with that?" Truthfully, I'd fix them. Or here's another thing that's really depending on what you're doing. The great Phil Ramone, who produced, the stuff he's most known for were all the Billy Joel classic 80s, 70s and 80s records. Paul Simon, but this guy goes, just look him up on Google. It's ridiculous. Phil Ramone, rest in peace. He passed a couple of years ago. But I got to work with him towards the end of his life, and we talked a lot about this. And what the classic producers used to do, and you'll hear this when you go back and listen to older records, is it was, as Phil says, it's all about the chambers, which basically means the reverbs and the rooms and stuff. And you'd be amazed at how, if we had more time, I'd go into this because it's a great question, to actually smooth that out by basically having the right reverbs so that you don't hear the, what you're talking about. But it is a great question because I probably would go in and fix them. Or even more importantly, I would pay more attention as I was doing them. But again, as I'm demonstrating, this is really spur of the moment, and it's where a lot of the magic happened for me in my recording career, so I don't want to stray from that too much. I don't want to think about it too much. There are plugins, too, that do it. You're probably well aware of, like Vocal Line, that will actually take the ends of phrases. But I'm so careful with all that stuff because the next thing you know, everything just sounds like it's phrased the same and the endings are all the same. Because there's an art to, does it sound like I'm copping out, saying there's an art to being sloppy? But there is. It's like, these are great questions because they're going to make me, create some deeper dive study into all this stuff. Because yes, I'm showing you with this how I made the records like Will You Still Love Me and the handful of Chicago hits that I recorded with them. But diving deeper into the psychology of I've given you guys actually that tonight of like going, okay, I'm going to sing this a little softer. I'm going to kind of weave, stick and move with this. But that's my long-winded answer. Anybody else? Yeah.
Who are the musicians
On this track, I played.
What was the question?
Oh yeah, that's right. We don't have a mic going on. Who are the musicians on this track? This was. I cut a demo of this way back when I wrote it, and I played fretless bass, and I played the keyboard pad sound, which is basically the changes. And then when I ended up making my first solo record, I just took my demos and I got John Keane to play drums, who's phenomenal, good old buddy of mine that I grew up with in LA. And Luis Conte, I put on percussion. And oh man, there's the most phenomenal soprano sax solo by Brandon Fields on this. That's just ridiculous. So, is there anything else on the?
Who did guitar?
Guitar. Oh, Tim Pierce. Tim Pierce played guitar. And actually, here's what I'm going to do for everybody here. Here's what I'm going to do. I want you guys to have this song. So if you can figure out a way to basically leave an email address or something, I promise I won't spam you to death and go, hey, check this out. I will send you this song because I'd love for you to hear everybody that's on it. One guy is Kenny Rankin. I don't know if anybody know who Kenny Rankin was, but he was phenomenal. Great, great singer, guitar player, real beautiful, sweet voice. He passed too, but I got to spend some time with him. Kenny's got this really beautiful voice. It's singing like right around here. When I met him, his speaking voice is like a baritone. He's one of those freaks. I'm going, I can't believe this. But I said, Kenny, will you sing on this song with me? And so I did all the background vocals, but I had him sing this weird low note. I said, here's what I want you to, in fact, I'll show you what it is. I hope this thing isn't like building up so much. And he turned it into what he was calling, he goes, yeah, it's kind of like a didgeridoo. It was like literally this low note. And coming out of Kenny Rankin, who is known for being this real sweet song, it's like his, let me see if it's too loud, but. We go on a while, I say everything. Oh, actually, the chorus isn't here, so let me see if I can. Okay, yeah, I'll give you. All right, so the melody. Let's ride away to San Felipe. I know we'll find our way to San Felipe. I know what you're doing. You're making me sing this. So I'll give you real quickly. I'm going to paint this up for you, okay? And I'm going to show you. This is exactly in the chorus, too. It's like he's a shill for me. Ask the questions like, no, yeah, oh, yeah, and then it's all in the chorus. I paid him to ask this question. So real quickly, I'll do this. Do you mind? You bear with me for 5 minutes? Okay, cool. Baby, let's ride away to San Felipe. I know we'll find our way to San Felipe. Okay, going to the double, on the double. Never, baby, let's ride away to San Felipe. I know we'll find our way to San Felipe. Triple it. Never, baby, let's ride away to San Felipe. I know we'll find our way to San Felipe. Okay, I'm glad that we're doing this because I sang some weird notes on this track. And the first one you're going to hear right now. And it won't make 100% sense until you hear the other parts. Okay. Never, baby, let's right away, San Felipe. I know we'll find our way, San Felipe. So first of all, as you can hear, I'm like singing, bay, right? So like, San Felipe, right? Who in their right mind is going to do that? Bay. I did, because I took. But I'm not in my right mind, so, right? Okay, so check it out. Check out what happens Never let me live right away. I know we'll find our way, San Felipe. You like a little dancing on the off note? It's all choreography, yeah. Okay. Another one of those. Never let me live right away, San Felipe. I know we'll find our way, San Felipe. Okay, and here I'm showing you the importance of having this template, so you can just fly through it. Here's the last one of those. Never let me live right away, San Felipe. I know we'll find our way, San Felipe. Okay, now I did 3 parts. Check this out. This is where it gets fun. Never let me live right away, San Felipe. I know we'll find our way, San Felipe. Hear how insane that bay note starts getting in the middle of that? Yeah, so I'll give you a couple more of those. Never let me live right away, San Felipe. I know we'll find our way, San Felipe. Never let me live right away, San Felipe. I know we'll find our way, San Felipe. All right, one more of these guys, and then we get to Kenny's note, man. Never let me live right away, San Felipe. I know we'll find our way, San Felipe. Okay, so that's pretty much the part. So I brought Kenny in and I said, man, he goes, why don't I do this low note? And I think it's an octave lower than what I'm about ready to sing for you. I think he went one, I really do. But it kind of, you'll see the effect. And I'll kind of sort of exaggerate it, like he was saying, it's like a didgeridoo. And I soloed his voice recently to listen to it. And he's almost kind of like, but never let me live right away. almost like this really bizarre kind of droning sound. Now, there's another example of I'm a little sharp on some of that, of the first half of that, but so what? Watch what happens when you paint. Right away. I know we'll find our way. Two more, we're done. Two more, here we go. Right away. I know we'll find our way. Last one. Last one. Oops, nope, that wasn't the right track. This is the last one. There you go. Right away. I know we'll find our way. So check out what happens. Now I've got all these background vocals on a sub mix. Let me see which one it's on. Right away. I know we'll. Okay, so now I've got them all on one fader, all those probably 12 tracks that I just did on those backgrounds. This is what Phil Ramone and all the great mixers would always show, that, you know, there's plenty of things to complain about, and especially that low note was like a lot of funny pitch stuff. But when I pull them back into the mix, and that lead vocal is really front and center, and you bring this whole background extravaganza into the sweet spot, watch what happens, you guys. Baby, let's right away, San Felipe. About right there. We'll find our way to San Felipe. So that's the balance. There's so much. There's so much low-end build-up because we want you guys to be able to hear things at a decent level and everything. But you could just tell that it's all and with one fader movement. That's the thing when I would be in nowadays with engineers, and I'll just tell them, say, let's set up this way, so that if I'm in the middle of recording and all of a sudden something's too loud, I don't have to wait for them to go take all these individual tracks and turn them up and down. It's like one little thing, and then you're off to the races. So that's, again, you know, just wanted to show you the efficiency of being set up properly so that you can fly through this stuff, you know. And that's basically how we did it. It's how I've made any of the records since then. When anybody's really happy with the work that we do, a lot of it has to do with the efficiency of it, to be able to fly through it, you know, like that. So anybody else have any other questions? All right. The question is, how many dates this summer, and are we coming close to Salt Lake? I think there's a conspiracy that wherever I spend any time, that they don't let us come and play concerts, you know, because I split my time between Utah and Nashville. And whenever I go somewhere, they just go, let's not book the band there because he lives there sometimes, you know. It seems like that. I know it's not true, but it seems like that. So the sad answer is that I don't think I see Salt Lake City on the roster this year, which is, come on, we're touring with Earth, Wind, and Fire. That's a pretty good package. Don't you guys want us here? I mean, let's go. With them, I'm not sure how many dates. It's 2 legs, you know, 2 separate tours. So I would say an average for each month is probably 5 shows a week. So 40 dates-ish with them. But, you know, we'll be in, I think we're playing Vegas with them. It's not too terrible to get to from here. I can look it up if you want. But that's going to be, I'm telling you, that is a fun tour. Like I said, that's, yeah, I'd love some. Thanks, man. Earth, Wind, and Fire. Earth, Wind, and Fire is one of probably the top 3 musical events that happened in my lifetime that made me want to stand here and do this. In fact, I'll tell you who they are. Elton John. Elton John, Earth, Wind, and Fire, Weather Report. So, what are some of your favorite bands? Who have you guys grown up with? What did Chicago? Awesome. Who? Journey. Styx. Toto? Boston. Beautiful. Foreigner? Oh, man, this is all such great stuff. Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Richard Marx. Okay, let me tell you a quick Richard Marx story. I joined Chicago in the end of 1985, and I was at David's studio, Foster's studio, chart maker, and Richard Marx was hanging out, and at the, you know, and he was like this guy that was just really, really talented, but just really ambitious, and the word was that this guy wasn't going to go anywhere. Yeah, seriously, he was really great. He was starting to. I turned my 13-year-old on to this little factoid. Richard was starting to do some studio work as a background singer. All night long, all night, all night, all night. That's Richard Marx and Donny Osmond on Lionel Richie's record, right? So Richard was starting to make some. He was singing on. He also sang on. What did he sing on? He was starting to make the rounds. His father was a big studio vocalist in Chicago, in the city of Chicago. Richard's from Chicago. And I just remember this vibe, and he was just, David, he loved Foster. Who didn't, right? And so I'm watching this kid, and Richard and I went and played racquetball a few times, and I'm looking at this kid going, poor Richard, you know, he just wants this so bad, and everybody says it's not going to happen for him. The next thing I know, I was on tour. One of my first tours was Chicago, and I went to this record store in the city of Chicago. And I see Richard's album on the shelves, 2 of them, right? They had a whole 2 Richard Marx albums stocked on the shelves. And I said, I got to help this guy, man. So I went and bought one of them, and I went up to the counter, and the girl said, he's a local boy. I said, yeah, I know, you know. And I bought his record, and the next thing I know, boom, Richard just lights it up. And he used John Keane on a lot of that first album. Yeah. What do you got for me, buddy?
Another question. So when you, in your band, have backup vocalists, how would you track them using this painting method? Because you've done it all here, right? So.
Truthfully, when I joined Chicago, the sound, and this is something that worked to my advantage, the sound of what You're the Inspiration and Peter Cetera's sound was is that he sang all his background parts himself. That's why it's so tight. That's why it's, you know, and that's part of a sound. Just like what I just did for you guys here, the phrasing is very tight, right? It sounds like the same kind of feel. So when I went in on Chicago 18, Will You Still Love Me, If She Would Have Been Faithful, all those ballads on that record, I sang to myself, you know, and like I said, it was one of the things that helped me win David over and become the next guy. Since then, like on the song Now that they were talking about earlier that I produced for our latest album, I got all the guys in on that and I painted them up, and they just sang to me. And, I went in and edited a little bit, to just kind of smooth out some of the edges and stuff. But that's what I would do, I still love the sound, especially for Chicago, of one singer basically phrasing to himself. I think that's a huge, powerful sound in that band, certainly in the 80s. And it's something that I want to continue to keep going. Like, What Kind of Man Would I Be was a song that came out in 1989. And I co-wrote that. It was the second hit that I sang with the band. And that was a moment where there was a suggestion of, let's pass the background vocals around to like the rest of the band. And I'm happy with it, but it's not the same sound, It was kind of a departure into more of a band sound, which is fine, but 80s style, Chicago vocals, I think is really strong with the one guy painting to himself. Yeah, man.
And then for live,
Well, for live,
obviously you can't, so they just try to sing to you.
yeah, and vice versa. If a lot of the classic, the classic stuff way before I was in the band, they, I'd hear their phrasing, and I've always been that way. That I'm not trying to stand out just for the sake of standing out. If you're the guy that wrote Saturday in the Park and you're singing it, I'm listening to you and trying to wrap myself around your phrasing. That comes from being a session singer too. Like I said, that Champlin took me into a lot of those recording dates that you got to sound like Kenny Rogers if you're singing on his record. Not sound like him, but phrase like him. Yeah, man. Yes.
So I've been studying the science of flow and different intelligences, and they found, like when you were saying, you kind of just get into this jive, some of your best sound comes out.
Mm-hmm.
What are some other things that you found has helped you when you're performing, when you're songwriting, to just really get into that flow?
Oh, what a great question. She's asking, she's been studying flow and what?
And then different intelligence types. So we found like some people are naturally more performer, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
acting on stage. And with kids, this is so important for them to start learning, because if they're naturally that way, if they learn to have confidence in what their natural gifts are, then we'll probably have a lot more amazing singers coming out. And it's exciting for me.
I agree with you. And, she's basically asking what to do to really open up, basically, to not be locked and just let it happen. When I joined this band, if you think about it, everything was riding on that album. Everything was riding on the follow-up to Chicago 17. Peter Cetera was coming out with his record, the first one he made as an ex-member of Chicago. So it was heavy. Luckily, I was young and stupid enough to not really understand, But it was heavy. And Peter beat us to the punch, released Glory of Love from Karate Kid. Whoo, we were behind the 8 ball. So it was like really a matter of, especially for me, not worrying. I wouldn't say worrying because I've never really been that type of person, but concerned that everything was going to be okay and right. And I fried big time. You can actually Google it or YouTube it on Arsenio Hall when he had his show. It was that moment where I was actually going out and singing truthfully to the world and not lip syncing. We did Solid Gold, which I did real easy because it was lip syncing, right? Just say you love me for the right. It was easy. And then we did Arsenio Hall with a new song that we hadn't really worked that much, and I fried. I felt like Archie Bunker on that episode. Some of you won't know this, but where he went on TV and was just like, I just couldn't breathe. And it haunted me for many years after that. I literally wondered if I killed our career. And then something happened. I think once the record industry changed and we weren't really making records anymore, and we kind of just settled down and go, it's not that heavy anymore. And I study also a lot of personal development and how to unlock. Here's my favorite question. Here's my favorite question to anybody who's going to go put themselves out there and they're kind of concerned. What's the worst thing that can happen? Right? If I'm not going to be dead or in jail, then I can deal with it. Right? Because that will kill you. Worrying about what people think. And I know we have to a degree, but man, when you can get past that, then you're on the way to being open. So I don't know how to explain that to kids yet, but I got it myself. So as soon as they're able to understand, because you're absolutely right. I play golf too, and I think I mentioned that earlier, kind of a golf sort of little story. And you know, if anybody plays golf out there, and I know you do, I can actually tell by looking at you. But you will never be able to become a great player or a decent player until you get that you have to not take it as seriously, right? Yeah, you got to put the reps in, just like this. You got to get some training, and unless you're super naturally gifted, but most of us aren't. So get some training and reps in, and then all of a sudden, when you get to the point where you just got to let it go and get out of your own way. But I understood that I'm never going to be able to be a better golfer until I get that mental thing together. And all it was just worried about making the mistakes, right? And at one point I got myself, when I was playing a lot, down into a low single-digit handicap, and it was really about that. Well, the same thing happened with this. I remembered I redeemed myself. I was on the way to redeeming myself. You can YouTube this if you want to also, but we did Jay Leno where he was out in Chicago. I'll never forget, I was watching, we did 25 or 6 to 4, which I'd done a billion times. I'm thinking, well, at least I'm comfortable with that one. And I remembered watching this TV monitor of all the artists that had done his show, and I remember seeing Sheryl Crow. And it was obviously early on in her career because she kind of looked and reminded me of like what I felt like. So it gave me a little bit more courage. Sheryl Crow, and she's not looking like she has full command of this yet, and I've seen her since then. She did, so I thought, all right, let's step this up. And it really was a matter of just thinking, you know, what's the worst thing that could happen? You know, so I'm long-winded. You get that? It's like I can't tell a short story and I can't tell a short answer to a question. Robert Lamb, I know it drives him crazy when we do press. It's kind of like brevity. Anybody else have a question, or have I scared you to death that I won't shut up once you ask it? Yes, young lady. I have been singing. I started kind of in my mother's band when I was 14 years old, because she kept hammering me, you got to sing. And it was not pretty. And then I got a gig when I was 16 that was really the gig I was hired to sing, to play and sing. And then I just kind of hacked through it. And then, like I said, I got my first real vocal lesson when I was 21, so that was, 5 years later. So 14, 24, 34, 44, and I'm 50, almost 53, so that's 39 years? Wow. Huh? Beautiful. How old are you? 11? Are you studying with anybody? She what? She could. What does that mean? You to beautiful. Let me tell you something, young lady. What's your name? Who? Kaya? Here's the deal. And I love this because I just spoke to somebody who was 15 years old recently, a bass player. A young lady. She's a bass player and she's great. And we had the same conversation, and I said, here's the deal. Nobody needs to hear, well, you already sing and you're out comfortable doing it. But when the opportunity comes knocking, like it did for me, because I didn't know I was a singer like you do. But when Chicago came and said, "We think you're the guy," it was the training that prepared me to be ready for it. It's the same thing as when you see people on The Voice and American Idol, and they're really good, but they're not ready for hitting the road and playing 110 shows a year. So you may not understand why, because it's now I'm my mother hammering on you, but if it's just to prepare, because I can tell already that you're great. I can tell. So if you just stack all the odds, imagine a sports figure going into whatever it is, the NFL. They are trained, and they still have trainers. I still go to a vocal coach. So if you want to do this for the rest of your life, and as Seth Riggs told me at 21 years old, he said, "It's so good you came to me because most people burn out if they don't have technique, especially once they're on the road and they're successful." He said, "But Jason, you will have a voice in 30 years. No, he said in 20 years. Because, I mean, who's going to have a career for 30 years? It's just unheard of. But we've surpassed that by 21, right? Almost 30 years, yeah. So fine. You know what? Deborah Bonner, do you know her? She's great. She's a Seth Riggs person too. And anything I can do to help while I'm around, because, the one thing I noticed, and I get into it a little bit in my course, the one thing I notice is when people, they don't know exactly how to describe it, but there's a break. There's a break in your voice. And some people are really great, but they don't have that technique to actually go up into their head voice. And so they'll get to, I don't even know if I can do this anymore because I've studied so long that it's hard to really kind of go back. And you need to come out and see me on the road after about 2 weeks of hard pounding, and then I start cheating and getting back into the bad stuff. But, but like say, okay, there's an F. That's really like the area where a tenor voice is going to start breaking. Like, no, 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 no. There's an F, right? That's usually where someone's going to, da, 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 da. I can't even do it anymore because I've trained myself to get up into the right place, but they're kind of crapping out like they're, right? But with training, that's a sweet spot. And people are usually like panicking, they're singing harder and louder and stuff. But when you can actually get training to get you to the, he does all these, like Deborah does, all these crazy, right? The exercises, nay, 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 nay. When you can actually get to the point where you can actually lean. Nay, 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 nay. Right? It's from building that bridge. And the other thing that's really cool about it is it records so well. That's the one thing. When I joined Chicago, the reason that it worked is because, as Bill Champlin would say, it prints so well. It prints. So when you're recording, because we used to use tape, and so we called it printing to tape. But if you're not supporting from the right spot, it's going to sound thin and weird, but you can actually sound like you're singing a lot harder than you are. Like I'm going to just kind of play around and I'm going to sing some rock and roll sound for you right now, but I'm not really singing loud. You know what I mean? So there's my long-winded answer for you. Go for it, though. Just stack the odds. I know there's some other questions. I saw some hands raised out there. Okay. When did I start making songs? Writing them. Another great question. When I got to LA, we were just trying to get work, trying to get a gig, right? And the next thing I knew in the 80s, everybody was like, let's write. I'm going, write? I got nothing to say, but because that's really when you see the true artists and the poets and the writers, I just wanted to get a gig, right? So crafting songs, but the cool thing is just putting myself out there for it. I started running into all these great artists like Bobby Caldwell, Steve Cropper, who was a guitar player in Booker T and the MGs, who produced Otis Redding, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. That's Cropper. Was in the Blues Brothers also, a big soul producer back in the 60s. Jeffrey Osborne. So I started getting with these people and kind of just booking these writing appointments. And again, it was just a craft. I wasn't saying I got something to say, but I ended up being okay at it. And then just the more you did it and things started happening, that's really what got me to Chicago too, because I was writing with some other guys. This guy, Dennis McCoskey, who had written Maniac. And but yeah, that's I started, I'd say really probably right around when I started studying with Seth, maybe 20 years old, 19, something like that. Anybody got anything else? Yeah. Great question. When I write songs, do I start with music or lyrics? I've traditionally started with music and then melody. But Elton John, like I said, is one of my biggest influences. And the way he writes is that his lyricist, Bernie Taupin, brings a stack of lyrics to him. And they've never apparently been in the same room writing a song. Bernie gives him his lyrics, and Elton John just goes and writes music to those words. So I've always threatened to try and experiment with that because it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different watchmaking technique. In fact, would you like to, are we still streaming? It doesn't even matter, right? Are we still live, Gaynor?
We're still live.
Can I sing an Elton John song or will we get in trouble for it?
Is it okay, Rachel? She'll come out and tell you just a second.
No? Okay, then we'll wait.
Should we wait till we'll stop the cameras and then we'll stop the stream and then we can do it?
No, whatever. I mean, yeah, we can keep this going, but I love to play an Elton song because you'll see how much I just love him.
Do you want to wrap it up and then sing a couple songs?
Maybe so. Yeah, we've been going a couple hours, so I don't want to like tax them. Like this guy's just. I don't want to be rude and get up, but he just keeps going on and on and on.
I'm sure they would love to hear some.
Okay.
We just can't put them on live.
Yeah. Well, and to all that have been watching the webcast, thank you so much for tuning in. And we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants here, and I hope that came across. Did it sound good in there, Gaynor? Coming.
Yeah.
What wasn't too boomy, like.
Yeah, you could roll off the vocal tracks just a little bit, but yeah, it was all right.
So it's my fault.
It's your fault.
Yeah. But you know what? What's the worst thing that could happen if he's? You can't hurt me. I'm not in jail, and I'm still breathing, so I got another shot. But anyway, any other questions? And thank you all for coming here. I just love this stuff. It's just, it's a lot of fun. So, thank you.